I'm just happy to be here, so happy to be here. But we ready to open our planning and zone meeting today. Thank all of you for coming. Will you all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Mills. So this meeting is a little different. It's not every day that we have new appointed planning and zoning commissioners, and we lose two that have such history and seniority with the commission. And so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to administer the oath of office and swear in two new commissioners, Matt Perry and Margaret Forbes. And then after that, we'll have some public service recognitions, and then we'll jump into the work session. So with that, I'm going to ask Miss Margaret Forbes and Mr. Matt Perry to come up to the podium, and Juan Paulette is going to swear you in.
So we'll start off with the statement of officer and then the oath of office. So if you can please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Margaret Forbes,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I have not directly or indirectly paid,
that I have not directly or indirectly paid,
offered or promised to pay,
offered or promised to pay,
contributed or promised to contribute
contributed or promised to contribute
any money or thing of value,
any money or thing of value,
or promised any public office or employment
or promised any public office or employment
for the giving or withholding of a vote
for the giving or withholding of a vote
at the election at which I was elected,
at the election at which I was elected,
or as a reward
or as a reward
to secure my appointment or confirmation,
to secure my appointment or confirmation,
whichever the case may be, so help me God.
whichever the case may be, so help me God.
That was a statement of officers, so now we'll go into the oath of office. You can raise your right hand again, please. Repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Margaret Forbes,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office
that I will faithfully execute the duties of the office
of the Planning and Zoning Commission
of the Planning and Zoning Commission
of the State of Texas,
of the State of Texas,
and will to the best of my ability
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and the laws
the Constitution and the laws
of the United States and of this state.
of the United States and of this state.
Of the United States and of this state.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
All right.
Congratulations.
All right, Matt, did you want to do a quick family photo before we move to the next item? Yeah. Thank you. All right, Mr. Mills, if you'll come on down, we'll switch you guys out. Oh, yeah. Maybe we had heard that last. If you guys just want to take a seat with Nias. Matt, I'll put you over here.
Okay.
And Margaret, I'll put you in the middle for now. Nice to meet you.
is it?
Yeah, it's a sync. We keep changing them around.
I may need a booster chair.
It's like we can switch back.
So typically, the chair will sit in the middle, and the vice chair will sit either to the left or to the right. And so the next item is actually appointing the new chair and vice chair. So typically, how this works is we will have each of you make a nomination for either yourself or one of your fellow commissioners, and then we'll put it to a vote. Now, this first meeting, staff will guide you through that agenda, so you don't have to do it by yourself. And then we also provided like a little outline on top of your packets to kind of give you an idea of the order of things, and then whoever is voted in as chair and vice chair, we can have an additional meeting with you afterwards just to go over more detail, kind of the roles and responsibilities of the chair. But essentially, the chair and vice chair, they help facilitate the meeting. They introduce each item. They help facilitate the public hearing portion, and then help move the meeting forward by calling for a vote, making motions, so forth and so on. And so, don't worry, we'll hold your hand through this first one, and then we'll provide some additional training for the new chair and vice chair. So with that, I'll open it up to the commission for nominations for our new chair and vice chair.
Don't look at
I nominate Shannon
I nominate Lily.
to be chairman. I said it first.
No, I nominate you to be chairwoman.
I was gonna nominate Shannon to
No.
be chairman.
All right,
Never speak to me again.
2 for Shannon. Margaret?
I nominate Lily to be chairman.
No, there's a tiebreaker here.
Oh, no pressure.
Oh, goodness. She's next to you, too. She would be a wonderful
I
chairwoman.
think Shannon would be so wonderful.
She's so astute and just so up on everything.
So Shannon.
Are we going to be equally forgiving no matter what I
Yes,
say?
absolutely.
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 And I buy lunch.
Then I would nominate. Oh wait, he said he was.
That-
I nominate
I'm
Shannon.
I strike that, I'm kidding.
All right, it looks like we have Shannon for chair. Now, I will say that this is not mandatory, so Shannon, if you're not comfortable being the chair, you absolutely don't have to take on that responsibility, but typically it's a majority. All
No,
right, all
I'll, with honor.
right, congratulations, Commissioner Conklin.
I've been on a year now. You're gonna, we'll have to help me through some of these.
Okay, absolutely.
We need to change places.
If you don't mind,
No,
just because
that's
the
way it
chair
should
does
be.
typically
You've got
sit in the middle.
gavel over here.
Just to
Oh.
I don't want to accidentally end up being the chair.
I got yours, Matt.
Don't worry, it's all the same content.
Shannon, your chair's gonna sink. Do you wanna?
Well,
I mean, you're the new chairman, so.
actually, I have yours. So you have it.
Thank you.
Carol, Ruth, I have yours.
Oh, we'll trade out here.
Oh, musical binders here.
All right.
Shannon.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Congratulations, Shannon.
All right, so now we'll move on to agenda item number 4. It's the public service recognition, and I'm gonna just grab these plaques over here.
Who's the co-you? Okay. Congratulations.
I got your back when you're not here.
All right, so.
Oh,
Can everyone hear me? All right, so we're going to start with Mr. Mills. Mr. Mills has served on the Planning and Zoning Commission since 2010. So he is the most senior commissioner with over 12 years of public service. And at this time, we would like to present Mr. Mills with a plaque to thank him for his service, for outstanding service to the citizens of Nacogdoches, Texas. Mr. Mills? Juan, you going to come over and take a picture? Here you go. All right, here you go, Mr. Mills. Thank you so much. We appreciate your service. And we're also going to send you home with your little nameplate. Thank you. Here you go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate everything you've done. Thank you, sir.
All right, our next recognition award is for Commissioner Kenneth D. Depesh. He has served on the Planning and Zoning Commission since 2018, and it looks like Mr. Depesh was not able to attend, but we will make sure that he gets this, and I will extend all of y'all's courtesies and congratulations on his retirement from the commission. All right. All right, so the next item is a work session. This is a presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding future work sessions in an educational series related to principles and best practices of municipal planning. So this is a work session that we started last year, around October 2021. We started having conversations about how to provide more information on different planning topics and best practices to the community and also to the commission, specifically in regards to our upcoming long-range planning process with the comprehensive plan update and the downtown plan update. And so we created a list of topics to be presented at public work sessions, including those that are outlined on your screen. The topics in yellow we've already covered, and so this includes comprehensive planning and community visioning, community engagement and meeting facilitation, a downtown revitalization and historic preservation, neighborhood planning, and economic development and planning. The other items on this list are items that were selected by the Planning and Zoning Commission, but we have not scheduled those yet, and so we wanted to make sure that we got some feedback from the new commissioners on these items. There's not a particular order. We did include this first set kind of as a good overview of different planning topics based on the calendar for our comp plan update and things that we would be talking about in the community. There are additional topics that we can also plan for future meetings, and we can send you guys a list of this. They include topics related to annexation, capital planning, short-term rentals and student housing, context-sensitive development, and these are all things that we've alluded to and kind of referenced during different presentations that have come up during different zoning requests, but these are intended to be a little bit more of a deeper dive into the specific topics, but still a high-level overview. And so if the commission is still comfortable with the remaining topics that are outlined in white at the bottom, we'll go ahead and schedule those for a future agenda, and then we'll send you guys the other list and let you kind of tier your priorities as far as the topics that you'd like to hear next in order. And so with that, I'll conclude the presentation on the work session item and open it up for comments or questions from the commission. And I'm sorry, these would take place at the second Monday meeting, and so this would be part of your regular meeting. I know from time to time we'll have a special meeting on the fourth Monday based on applications and neighborhood meetings that we're having, but we would only have one work session a month. All right, any questions from the commission?
Elena, can you go back to the other topics?
Mm-hmm.
So if we see something there that looks really interesting, can we promote that ahead of some of the other issues? Or I don't want to jump over what the previous commission has selected, but how do we go about selecting these additional topics?
We can do that now, or I think the best thing to do is, because we already have this list, we can go ahead and select which topic we discuss next as far as what's remaining in the white. And then in between now and then, I'll send you that list of the additional topics, and you guys can reprioritize that if you like. We were just essentially trying to match the topics to the different things that we were going to be talking about in the community as far as the comprehensive plan update and the downtown master plan update, things that were kind of relative to that process. But absolutely, if you guys want to take another look at that list and reprioritize or give additional feedback, then we can bring that back to next month and give you guys like a summary of the feedback that we heard from each of you. And at that time, we can reprioritize, reschedule. So yeah, absolutely. I think we would like to go ahead and move forward with that next one, that land use and fiscal balance one. And then the remainder, we'll just say to be determined based on feedback at the next meeting.
Maybe you could email us that schedule or the.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Sound good? All right. Any other questions on that work session item? Okay. All right, so that puts us right into the next item. And this is I'm sorry, I forgot. We have item number 6, open forum. So this is an opportunity for anyone to address the commission and provide any comments or commentary on anything that's not scheduled for tonight's agenda. So this is where we can take general inquiries or comments from the public. Now, if it's not scheduled for tonight's agenda, you can't deliberate or discuss it, but it could be something where you can call staff back up to the podium and provide clarification on a statement that's made, but generally, we're just receiving public input on general items. And so with that, I'll step aside and see if there's anyone here to provide any comments on the open forum section.
Does anyone have any comments on open forum? I don't think so.
All right, so with that, move on to the next item. This is the consent agenda. This is for items that are considered routine by the commission and enacted by one motion. These include final plats where staff has found compliance with the minimum subdivision regulations. This also includes minutes of regular meetings. And this, the only item under this section is item 7A, approval of the minutes from July 25th, 2022. And so with that, Chairman, I think we can ask for a motion from the commission on those minutes, or if there's any needed edits or revisions to those.
Has everyone had a second? Well, we have only two here that were part of those minutes. Do we have a motion on the minutes?
I make a motion to approve it.
Second.
Okay. Any against? Say same. Same, right?
All right, sounds
Nothing.
good.
They're approved.
All right, this next item is item 8A. This is typically for any items that were on consent that are removed for consideration, and there were no items. So then we'll move on to item 8B, public hearing. And Chairman, if you'll just read that caption, staff will get started with the presentation.
Okay, this public hearing is for consider a request for a zone change from I-2 heavy industrial to R4 multifamily for approximately 3 acres, being a portion of Lot 5 of the OTR Place subdivision, generally located on the west side of Old Tyler Road, approximately 850 feet north of Powers Street. This request has been made by Universal Construction and Remodeling, LLC, case number ZON 2022-07.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, this is 3 acres out of a 7-acre tract known as Lot 5 of the OTR subdivision, located on the west side of Old Tyler Road. The property is undeveloped, and a large portion is vegetated, and the applicant is requesting a zone change for the portion that is zoned heavy industrial, a change from heavy industrial to R4 multifamily. The majority of the lot is already zoned multifamily. At one point in time, that entire frontage of Old Tyler Road was zoned industrial. And then somewhere between the late 90s and early 2000s, the remainder of the lot that you see that's maroon was rezoned to R4. However, that does leave a portion of the property zoned industrial. The applicant does plan on developing this property for a future residential development. I-2, that heavy industrial designation doesn't allow for residential development. And so in order to create a consistent zoning across the property, the applicant has requested a change in zoning just to create a single zoning across the entire property. And so if you look at the map, you'll see that there is industrial zoning immediately to the north. There's also industrial zoning to the east across Old Tyler Road. And the remainder of the surrounding property is zoned R4 multifamily. All right, as I stated, the property is undeveloped. If you look at this map, you'll see that the property is bounded on the east side by Old Tyler Road. Directly to the north, that's actually floodplain and a tributary of Bonita Creek, rendering that portion of the property essentially undevelopable. And then that portion of the property that's bounded by the north and the west, that's actually Lot 4 of the OTR Place subdivision. This subdivision was approved in late 2021, and the owner, Ari Montez, actually took that forward to the Planning and Zoning Commission and restricted this lot as a conservation preservation lot. And so in essence, this property is to be maintained in its natural state in perpetuity, so no development is allowed to take place on that property. There is a utility easement running north-south, connecting a future transmission station, but that is the only type of development that'll be permitted. Any future development or change to this lot actually has to come back to the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval. So in essence, that is a kind of natural buffer to the other properties that are fronting onto North Sanders Street. Property to the south is also zoned multifamily. There's a single-family home right there that abuts the property and has frontage onto Old Tyler Road, but the other lot is undeveloped. So just to give you an idea of the character of the surrounding property and some of the restrictions of the property to the north and to the west. Again, I just wanted to highlight that Lot 4, that's that conservation lot that isn't enabled for any type of development that's going to be restricted. So this, in essence, kind of serves as a natural buffer between that future R4 zoning and the lots that have frontage onto North Sanders Street. The property is designated as single-family. However, the future land use map is not a parcel-by-parcel specific mandate for how property should be developed. It doesn't, in essence, create zoning. It's a visual depiction of how property is intended to be developed over time. However, if there's a difference between a proposed land use and the future land use plan, these can still receive a favorable recommendation if the request is found to meet, if the request is otherwise found to be in compliance with the comprehensive plan in regards to the goals and objectives of the comprehensive plan and those land use policies that are outlined. This request does meet a number of those objectives and policies in regards to creating additional residential housing in close proximity to schools and public parks, and also creates growth inward. So identifying additional growth where infrastructure already exists, including streets, water, and sewer, in essence, infill development. It also provides for a balance and mix of housing. So while this is an R4 zoning, there is a natural buffer between this lot and some of those single-family uses that front on North Sanders Street. And so staff does find that it is in otherwise compliance with the comprehensive plan, even though the request differs from the future land use map. All right, these are some photos of the subject property. And so here you'll see this is just a street view of the property from Old Tyler Road. You'll see it is largely undeveloped with lots of large mature trees. This is a street view of properties on the other side of Old Tyler Road. And so the photo on the top of the screen, that's actually a view looking south. And you can see there's a red barn structure. That's actually a residential structure. And then the photo on the bottom, that's looking north along Old Tyler Road. These are just some additional pictures that are more zoomed in. So in the upper left-hand corner, that's a vacant commercial building that's across Old Tyler Road. It looks like at some point maybe it was a convenience store, and there's an old covered structure, and these do abut the railroad tracks just east. And so these were probably used for some sort of industrial use that took access to the railroad. The photo on the bottom, that's actually a residential structure, and there's some additional residential structures in the background that you can see that are also located on that lot. All right, the conditions for approval of a zone change are outlined on your screen. These are the conditions for approval that the Planning and Zoning Commission must consider when evaluating these types of requests, and they include a compatibility with existing and adjacent land uses. They include orderly growth, in essence, that they're making sure that the request won't impede the normal and orderly development of surrounding property. Number 3, supporting facilities. So in essence, making sure that there's adequate utilities and infrastructure and road access for the property. Number 4 is drives and parking, ensuring that the design of driveways and parking spaces are safe and convenient. Nuisances. Number 5, ensuring there's adequate nuisance prevention measures if there is a scenario that where there may be a prevalence of offensive or nuisance land uses. Number 6 is lighting. So making sure that any lighting that's provided will be directed so as not to disturb or adversely affect neighboring properties. Landscaping, sufficient landscaping and screening to ensure compatibility. And then comprehensive plan, that's that the proposed use is in accordance with the comprehensive plan. So as part of this request, we did send 10 notices to property owners within 200 feet of the subject property. We also sent courtesy notices to property owners within the 500-foot area. And we also placed a sign on the property fronting Old Tyler Road And we also publicize the public hearing online and on social media. This visual just demonstrates kind of the makeup of the surrounding land uses that are within that 200-foot buffer area, and the number of property owners. So sometimes you'll have 2 or 3 parcels that are commonly owned, and so you may have, 15 parcels, but only 10 property owners, and so that's why you may see a discrepancy in the number of letters versus the number of parcels. But this just gives you an idea of kind of the types of uses and then who received that letter. As of today, we haven't received any written opposition or any written responses in favor. And so in the staff report, you'll see that we didn't have a whole lot of commentary. And as of this morning, we also didn't have anything in the mail or any voicemails, so we did check to make sure that we didn't have any additional commentary. There are some people in attendance, so we'll open up the public hearing in a little bit and let anyone who's here speak in favor or in opposition, and the applicant is also in attendance. And so that concludes staff's presentation. Again, this is a side-by-side visual kind of showing you the existing zoning and the proposed to give you an idea of what that would look like as far as that change. And with that, I'll conclude staff's presentation, open it up for questions from the commission before we defer to the applicant and open up the public comment portion.
Thank you, Lena.
All right.
Are there any questions from the commission?
I have some questions. I don't know if it's relevant to the zone change request, but maybe just my own education.
You want to turn your microphone on, just press the button.
How's that?
Better.
There you go.
How is the landscaping requirement enforced? Is that, because I've seen some new developments go in where there's zero landscaping, and I'm just wondering, how that, I didn't really have time to read what the landscaping ordinance is, but you did mention it in your.
Yes, so the landscaping is dictated by the actual type of development. R4 does allow not only for apartment construction, but also allows for single-family and duplex-type development. If the applicant does end up building single-family or duplex construction, then the commercial district landscaping requirements wouldn't apply. But if they do end up building actual apartment complex, then the commercial screening and streetscaping would apply, meaning that they have to install street trees along the frontage road. And then if the property did abut a single-family zoning district, then screening would be required. Now, if you look at the map, this property doesn't back up to any single-family, so there wouldn't be any screening necessarily, but there would be street trees planted along that frontage road if they do end up building an actual apartment complex. But just for single-family construction or duplex construction, those development standards wouldn't come into play.
So there's no landscaping requirements for single-family or duplex?
Yes, ma'am, correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, I was curious about the sidewalks, because I know a lot of people up in that general area, especially further up Powers, don't have vehicles, and I've done a walking survey up there, and I've seen desire lines where people, obviously are walking to town, and some of these people might be walking to town along Powers, and is there any way to include sidewalks in the infrastructure for this? There seems to be plenty of room along Old Tyler Road for that.
Yeah, so, as you stated, this property does front Old Tyler Road. There aren't any sidewalks planned for this area. Whenever we're looking at these types of requests and imposing conditions on them, we do want to take a look at the adjacent development and kind of anticipate what that looks like. And we also don't want to apply any conditions that may create a segmented transportation link. So in this case, and I wish our city engineer was here, because there aren't any planned sidewalks either north or south, and this is actually a collector road, it's meant to really carry traffic from direct access to other regions of the city. It might not be as appropriate to install sidewalks like you would on Powers or North Sanders, because those roadways really are more residential, they provide direct access, and they have a lower speed limit. And so all those things that come into play, I think if this was more interior to property to the to the west, closer to the school, on a roadway that didn't have as much capacity or traffic volume, that was a lower speed, I'd be more inclined to have a discussion about imposing a condition on sidewalks, but because it does front Old Tyler Road, I don't know that we want to recommend or encourage people walking along that commercial corridor. Does that make sense?
It does, but if you're
Yeah.
putting multiple family housing there,
Mhm.
then people are going to be walking.
Yes. At this point in time, we don't know what the development is going to be, and I can have the applicant come up and address the commission. Typically, whenever we get the actual permit and the construction plans, then we have a better idea of what's being built, and we can look at traffic impact analysis, we can look at pedestrian connectivity, but we don't typically look at those things at the zoning level unless it's like a planned development where they have a specific land use plan that's being adopted with it, or a specific use permit or something like that. But I think I'll ask the applicant to come and address the commission to talk about what the plans are.
Okay,
the property.
I just have one more question about
Okay.
the number of driveways that would be expected to come out on this.
Again, it depends on the development, because single-family construction has a different driveway spacing than duplex and residential, so it depends on the density. That'll kind of dictate the driveway spacing. So at this time, we don't really know exactly what the layout is going to be or the density, but the city engineer reviews and approves all our driveway spacing permits, and so when they submit for permit, we'll have them show their ultimate layout and identify where those driveways will be, but at this time, it's a little premature because we don't know exactly what the development type will be or the layout.
So, could this plat be subdivided into several other plats and each one would have a driveway? Or are you saying multiple single-family residents would go on this one plat?
Either or. So, one of the things with R4 multifamily zoning is you could subdivide the lot into, standalone lots for sale to be developed individually, or you could develop it as more of a unified development that shared access and driveways and things like that. So it just depends. The applicant wouldn't necessarily have to subdivide in order to build multiple single-family homes on it, because that R4 zoning provides that flexibility. But they could if they wanted to. So at this point, once the zoning is approved, they could submit for permit without requiring any additional subdivision. Sometimes developers will opt to subdivide a property if they want to develop it and then sell it off individually, or if they're planning on maintaining it for rental property, they just keep it as a whole. So it just kind of depends. And again, I think it'd be helpful to have the applicant kind of speak to the plans are, and then we can talk about it in more detail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Would the commission like to hear from the applicant at this time?
Anything else?
No,
Okay.
no questions.
All right.
Good evening, Commissioners. How are y'all? I'm RJ Bohack. I'm actually with ETX Realty. I'm not per se the applicant. I just came on his behalf to answer any questions. I help with different developments and things, and so I have a relationship with him. So what our ultimate goal was today is just to clean this lot up, just because the I-2 just doesn't fit there. Ultimately, the end game of what's going to be done there, it hasn't been discussed exactly yet. It's, to be honest with you, we're going to meet with the engineer tomorrow to even see how it lays out, what it looks like and that sort of thing, because the tackle or the difficulty with this is the topography. It's very, very, it goes in about, I think the lot itself is about 300 foot deep, and so about 100 foot from the road is flat, and then it goes straight up. So doing dirt work and topography of that just, economically doesn't make sense. So it's not, realistically, I would say maybe a third of this property is actually going to be used, and the rest of it's just going to end up being green space like that's already there, just due to the topography. So ultimately, there's not going to be like apartment complexes or anything like that. It's just, like I said, just today was just trying to clean up the zoning that's there, because I-2 just obviously doesn't fit there. So I'm open for any questions or any concerns. I'd be happy to visit. So.
Any questions?
Have at it.
Well, I mean, you say you're not going to put apartments there, but once, it is R4.
Correct.
So I don't understand how you can really assure us that apartments won't go in
Due
there.
to, due to the, for sure, definitely the land, it just doesn't allow it.
I mean, there's not enough space there to meet the setback requirements for apartments?
Correct, and versus with the depth of, like I said, the depth of the lot versus the topography, it would be, it's not advantageous to dig into the side of the hill to build a, you know, a
Okay.
50-foot wall.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, RJ.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Mr. Bohack.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
All right, so if there aren't any other questions of staff, we could open it up for the public comment portion of the meeting.
Oh, that's public comment.
Is there anyone that would like to speak on this matter? Come up, please, sir. If you just state your name. 3 minutes. You have.
I may address you. I'm a resident who lives close by this. I'm within 500 feet of it, and I had some questions. This property was previously heavy industrial.
Could you state your name, please?
My name is Joe Starr.
Thank you, Mr. Starr.
I don't hear very well, so you have to
quite all
speak
right.
into your microphone.
Yes, sir.
Previously, that whole valley was filled with large sawmills back when this area was big trees. And all trees were gone, the sawmills are gone. But in those days, they didn't pay much attention to environmental. And they dumped things on the ground and things were dirty and they just buried them. And I just wondered, on this property, has this been cleaned up environmentally?
It's not a question we can answer.
I can address that after the public
Okay.
comment portion.
Okay.
Okay, and my other question is, before I can get behind this thing or stand against it, I need to know what kind of thing they're gonna put in there. They need to make some sort of statement. We need to know if it's gonna be a nice apartment complex or just duplexes, or if it's gonna be something like on the top of the hill on Highway 21 where you're scared to go in there. Is this could affect the quality of life for the people who live around there.
Yes, sir.
But y'all aren't anybody who could answer these questions for me. I see this, I'm sorry I couldn't gather more information here, but I'll continue to observe this and see what I can find out.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you.
Starr?
Are there any other comments from the public? Please come up, sir. If you would state your name, please.
Yeah, my name is Frank Leonard. And on your map of Old Tyler Road, I had the property right across the street, which used to be the city water plant. So I don't really have any, well, I don't know, but I don't really have any problem with what's happening across the street from me. But I just want you to know that on that other side, it's an historical site. And it's so noted, you know, by the city because it's the water plant.
On the east side of the road.
Yeah, where you see 926, 902. All that, well, actually what happened was the city used that as a water plant, and they have a lot of wells that were drilled out there. And they push the water up the hill, and then the water comes down the hill. I remodeled 902 Old Tyler, which was the superintendent's home. And then I turned a garage in the back into a little space. And there was a big red building on there that I also transformed. And then behind that is a 130,000 gallon water tank. The walls are like about this thick and about 10 feet high. So I just wanted to let you know what actually is across the street. And that big red building you see, that's on my property too. It's right at the end of the property. It's about 4,000 square feet, that. So I've done a lot of plumbing and things like that to the property. I've put water to that big red building. They use that building for storage and a lot of other things. So I just wanted to bring that up as this thing goes along, I kind of like follow it. But I'm not really having any problem with what they're doing across the street, but I just wanted to know what's happened on the other side. I don't know about the putting sidewalks there, because I've lived there since 2003. And there's a lot of traffic that comes up, and the police usually have a guy slowing people down. And if you're not careful, you'll get run over. So I have a question about putting sidewalks right there. You know, I think it's just kind of dangerous the way that road is. You go into the valley and you come right up, and people are going sometimes 50 and 60 miles an hour before they hit Power Street.
Sure.
So if you, that's one of the points.
Thank you, sir.
I think that's all I had, but I think it would be good to know what's across the street from it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Montez, come on up.
Please, sir.
I'm kind of late to the party. My name's Irie Montes. I used to own the property that they purchased. Know a little bit about it. About 50 some odd years ago, there used to be a dirt pit. They used to take all the dirt off of there. I drive by there every day, and they're just excavating dirt. So as far as putting stuff there, they've been taking stuff out. So they've taken it down to the green rock. In areas, there's still a lot of good sand, select fill, and stuff like that. But the purpose of this right here is I saw that as an R4 area versus an I2. I don't think the people would like to have an I2 feature right there on Old Tyler Road versus an R4. Be it a single residence, which they can do, a duplex, a triplex, or a multifamily plex. And so, as far as going, if the decision is decided between it being an R4 versus R2, I'm highly in favor of an R4.
Mr. Montez, I have a
Thank you.
question for you. We have voted on this plot of land before, and for
we
La
have?
Cantera, yes, for La Cantera, well, not this plot specifically.
Back on the other side.
Yes, on the other side. And my question to you for conservation was that it was a large plot of dirt land. You chose to keep it as a conservative effort. Any particular reason why, and was there any remediation that you did on this land separate from this plot? The one that,
No remediation that I was made aware of.
okay,
Now, if anybody wants to know anything, is just right across the street in behind where it used to be a lumber yard.
mm-hmm.
There's a dump site there. Did y'all know that? It's all fenced in, and that's where they put all the bad stuff.
Could you point out where that is on the map?
If you-
Okay, whenever you go across the railroad track, there's a place called like on Powers. You're coming from Pearl Street. Right before you go across the railroad track, that building to the right.
So 600 area. Well,
Okay, that particular building right there used to be some building material place years and years ago.
Crawford's. Was it Crawford's? Was it
Crawford's Plumbing?
Crawford's.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a drive that you go on back and you see a chain link fence about yay high. I asked about it because I was looking at the property up the way, not the people that spoke earlier, but they said that is an environmental control dump station.
So TCEQ is aware of it, of course. They better be.
Next to the creek.
EPA, CCQ, you name all those with initials. Yeah, they're aware of it. They dump it there. They did it.
Sure.
But, so as far as cleaning anything up over there, that area, which has nothing to do with this here, I just don't want, I would prefer not to have more industrial
Sure.
in what I consider to be a key pathway into Nacogdoches.
Okay.
People come off that loop, they come right down Old Tyler Road. Unfortunately, a little policeman sits over there all the time, making sure they go 45.
Sure.
and he's sitting in the shade, imagine that. And as far as, you know, yes, and as far as they said the elevation change in there, they're not able, I don't see how they could fit a big housing complex. It's just not gonna give you the room to have the parking. But again, the emphasis today is that should it be I-2 or for housing? Industrial housing, and that's the decision.
Right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Montez.
Mr. Montez. Is there any other comments from the public? Good afternoon. If you would just state your name, please. and-
Deborah Leonard. I guess the part I didn't understand is if they're just gonna clean it up, then why are we changing the zoning? If it's just to clean it as opposed to building properties. I also live across the street at 902, 906, 910, and 926. So that's the part I didn't understand when he said we're just cleaning it up.
Yeah, I think he said, you know, that they're evaluating what they can do with it first, and then possibly make a decision there and propose that to the city. But at this point, first step they would like is to move it from I-2 to, or I-2, correct? to
Right,
an
I-2 to R4.
So, which
Takes
looks-
it out of industrial,
What it's gonna be
right.
used. Okay.
Well, it takes it out of industrial zoning, which Elena can speak more to that, of what can be put on industrial, to a residential area that's gonna be multifamily.
It looks like currently 2/3 of the plot of land that they have is already R4, and they're wanting to take the 1/3, yes, ma'am, the remaining 1/3 I-2 to R4 too.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Mrs. Leonard.
Are there any other comments? Okay. We will close public forum, correct, Elena?
And I will do my best to address some of the questions that came up. I know Mr. Starr had questions about environmental issues. Staff is not aware of any environmental issues as far as brownfield or contamination of the property. Whenever a construction site plan is submitted, our engineering department reviews those to see if this property is listed as a brownfield site or anything like that, to verify if there's any remediation that is required. But based on my knowledge, I'm not aware of any of those restrictions. We will verify that before this item goes to city council, just to make sure. I apologize for not having that information ahead of time. As far as the type of development, again, this is the zoning phase of this project, and so there haven't been any preliminary drawings or plans that have been submitted to the city. At this time, we're just looking at, is this property appropriate for R4 multifamily zoning? If it is approved and the applicant does decide to move forward with a project, then at that time, they'll submit construction drawings or permitting plans, and it'll be reviewed for compliance with our engineering standards, traffic, environmental, so on and so forth. I will say that depending on the density, a traffic impact analysis is required if it's 50 units or more. And so essentially, they have to demonstrate that the increase in density doesn't negatively impact the roadway or capacity. And sometimes we've seen that larger developments actually dictate a improvement to the roadway, whether that's a signal light or deceleration lane or something of that nature. But at this point, we don't know, because we don't know what the development type will be. And so unfortunately, unfortunately, I don't have those plans on hand, because like the applicant said, they haven't gotten that far in the process. But there are some encumbrances on this property that do make it difficult for kind of that large-scale complex development. The terrain does lend itself more to a lower-density residential product. That doesn't mean that it's not impossible, it just might take a lot of engineering and money to do that, but I think I answered the question the best that I could. Any other questions from the commission? Did I miss something?
Can you speak to Ms. Leonard's question about industrial zoning versus residential?
Yes, so industrial zoning allows for a myriad of manufacturing land uses. I'm going to grab my zoning ordinance. All right, so I'm just going to take a look. So I-2, heavy industrial, that's our most intense zoning district. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Sure, all right. All right, so some examples of some of the permitted land uses in our I-2 district include, let's see. All right. Right, they include household appliance and equipment repair, exterminator service, indoor auction of goods and equipment, cemetery or mausoleum, veterinary office, also includes laundry or dry cleaning facilities, mortuary or funeral home, photocopying or duplicating. Some more intense uses include taxidermy, upholstery shop, and then continued mobile manufactured home dealer, monument sales, auto repair, auto storage, auto supply, service stations, auto paint body repair, vehicle maintenance, also wholesale trade in manufacturing, so paper and paper products wholesale, petroleum products and storage wholesale, heavy machinery sales, dairy products manufacturing, grain mill products manufacturing, meat products manufacturing, microbrewery, bottling. Primarily, it's a manufacturing heavy land use. And really, the reason why this is reserved for those most intense zoning or those most intense land uses is because those land uses generally can generate a lot of noise, odor, vibrations. They tend to yield higher potential nuisances for the adjacent developments, especially if they're residential. And so that's why you don't see as much of the industrial zoning within the communities, especially in close proximity to some of our residential areas. So that's an example of some of the more intense land uses that would be permitted in that industrial district. These are typically driven by large freight traffic and just include a lot of land area just because of the nature of the facilities. And so I hope that answers your question.
It definitely does. Does that
go
answer
on.
your question, Ms. Leonard? If you ever are interested in knowing more, you can go to NACTEX. What's our city site?
NACTX.us. And on the planning page, we have a direct link to our zoning ordinance that has the full list of land uses that are permitted in each zoning district.
There you go. Thank you, Elena.
Does the historic status affect anything about development across the street, if that's the case?
So the historic overlay designation doesn't actually change any of the land uses that are permitted. Essentially, what that does is create additional restrictions on any sort of exterior improvements to that property. So if the applicant were to make any structural changes to that historic building or any site improvements that could modify that character, they would actually have to submit that not only to the city permitting office, but take it before our Historic Landmark and Preservation Committee for review to make sure that whatever exterior changes are being recommended are in line with the character and context of whatever that historic district was approved for. Typically, when these are approved, they're very specific as to kind of the character and era of when that structure was constructed.
They can even be as simple as a window, correct?
There's nothing on that particular lot, though, that's historic, right?
So there
You're talking
is,
about something across the street.
Yeah.
yes, so the historic district is across the street, and you can see it in this photo on the lower right. You see there's like a small brick structure. That's the structure. Additionally, that portion of property, most of it is actually in the floodplain, and so there's some additional development things that come along with that if that property were to ever develop or redevelop in the future. So there's the historic kind of encumbrances that would create additional review, and then the floodplain also has additional kind of restrictions on the future development.
Okay.
Right.
Any other questions for Lynn? Okay. We'll move on Is there any discussions amongst the council?
All right, so I think first we'll ask for a motion and a second, and then we
do
can
now, okay.
open it
Alright.
up for discussion. Yes, sir.
That's right. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve it, from I2 to R4.
All right, second.
Second.
Right, now we can have deliberation amongst the commission.
Okay.
I'm making that motion basically because I believe the rest of the land, is gonna fit with the use right now for R4. I do think that topographically, I have reviewed that, it is really hard to build anything that's larger than what I think a duplex or a small little townhome, or maybe a couple of them, could fit on that land, because I remember studying it intensively in that drop-off area, knowing that that wasn't able to be feasible. And like Elena said, it would be anything's feasible with a lot of time and money, and I don't believe for profitability's sake that that would actually be beneficial for the builders. So, just letting you guys know, that's my thought.
Thank you. Any other comments?
You're looking at me.
No, I just don't.
I agree. I think this is obviously the right thing to do, to convert that I2 zoning. It doesn't really belong there anymore. I don't know how it ended up in that shape. Elena explained it to me earlier today, but I couldn't tell you how it got like that. But it shouldn't be there. So
I agree.
I support that.
I agree. I looked over the report, drove past and looked at it, viewed the pictures, and my approach was, is there any reason, is there any room to poke holes in this? Like you said, I don't see any reason that I2 would be effective there. I see no reason not to change it to R4.
Okay, can we get all those in favor, right? All those in favor of changing, zone change from I2 to heavy industrial to R4 multifamily?
Yeah, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay.
All right, motion carries. All right, so next item on the agenda is City Council decisions on planning and zoning cases. So on August 2nd, 2022, City Council took action on a proposal for a specific use permit for a tattoo and body piercing studio located at 3701, 3703, and 3705 North Street. City Council did move to approve that request unanimously. Does anyone have any questions about that City Council action on that item? All right.
No questions.
Okay, all right. Next item is discussion and possible action on future agenda items. This is where any member of the Planning and Zoning Commission can inquire about a subject for which notice was not given. For example, a statement of a specific factual information or a recitation of a policy may be given. However, no deliberation can take place on a subject unless it's placed on a future agenda item. So if there's any questions or clarification from the commission on anything on the agenda, or just maybe something that you've seen in the community, or questions that you've received about anything planning related, we can provide clarification on that. Or if there's a agenda item that you'd like to discuss for a future meeting, we can place that on a future agenda item as well. I did want to note to the commission that we will be having a Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on August 22nd for 2 different zoning items. And so I did want to make sure we were going to have a quorum. And so I know Commissioner Forbes has already let me know that she can attend remotely. However, we will need a physical quorum in the room. So as long as we have 3 of you physically present, then the rest of you can attend remotely if you have a conflict or something like that. And so I just kind of wanted to go down the row and see what kind of.
I'll be here.
At this time, I will too.
All right, perfect. All right, thank you. Does anyone on the commission have a question about anything, or want to place a topic on a future agenda item for discussion?
How did Chairman Conklin do?
No, I'm not good.
You did
I
great.
did not come in here thinking I was gonna.
Good surprise.
Good job.
No, thank you.
What we'll do is Shannon, I'll contact you and Lily to come in, and we'll have kind of a deeper dive orientation. And then we can also ask Ken to attend, and because he did it for a long time, he can kind of provide some input and insight in that regard. But it's a art, not necessarily a science. So I think you guys did did great, especially for your first meeting with new chair and vice chair. So, all right.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thanks, Elena.
All right, thank you. And we can adjourn at 6:11 PM.
Adjourn.
Thank you.